Hello and welcome to a one-on-one show of Urban Update. Today we are with Mr. Vincent of the European Union. We will talk about what is the role of European Union in achieving sustainable development goals and all the objectives under New Urban Agenda. Mr. Vincent, we will start with the role of European Union because European Union is doing many projects and programs across the world for sustainable development, promoting sustainable development, also all the objectives related to Paris Accord. So what are your views and what are the programs that you are running across the world?
Well, the European Union is proud to be, together with 28 member states, the first donor of public development aid in the world by far. We provide more than 50% of the public development assistance. And all this development assistance is channeled and framed into the Sustainable Development Goals, which have been defined by the United Nations, and which aims at reducing by 2030 poverty through a sustainable way, by social inclusion and by more respectful environmental economic growth. So our assistance in the world goes mainly to Africa because that's where the needs are biggest. That's where you find the largest proportion of poor people. But a big chunk goes also to Asia and a small proportion to Latin America. And so when it comes to sustainable development in proper, indeed, the whole aim and 100% of the aid goes to tackling the various 17 SDGs. But in particular, when it comes to your question of urban development and sustainable urban development, we indeed believe that the emphasis should be put now on urban population. Why? Because this is now becoming in the whole of Asia the majority of the population, more than 50% in most cases of the people live in urban area, and this proportion is growing very fast, and it brings many challenges in terms of transport, of clean air, clean access to water, etc. And so that's where we want to put the emphasis. And we do it also by working in particular with local cities and government.
I will come back to the sustainable urban development. The first, because why we need sustainable urban development? Because many cities today, they are facing numerous challenges, whether it is solid waste management, whether it is clean air, clean water. Even many cities in countries like India and Africa, they are getting out of water. They are no water left, and even in Africa, they were saying zero water day was going to happen. So, what are the views? What are the main challenges do you see that cities are facing today?
Well, cities in particular, very fast sprawling cities in Asia are faced, as you said, with the challenge of nourishing people just with food. This is more or less satisfied, but then providing them clean water, clean air, and a clean environment. When it comes to water and scarcity of water, here we have to tackle this at the origin of the problem. The origin is indeed climate change and the melting glaciers in the Himalayas, etc. So here the big picture is very much still needed. But we also have to work on energy efficiency, water efficiency. Not wasting water, not wasting energy is something which will also help us to probably reduce by a couple of percentage points our consumption. And as you said, waste management. But yes, providing a livable city to our citizens, in particular the new arriving citizens in urban areas, which too often live in shanty towns in very poor condition, is a priority.
Okay, so and if we talk about you talked about shanty habitats. Slums are also a big concern for cities, big cities especially, when we see that people are migrating from rural areas to urban areas, and we say that the population will be almost 74% by 2050, 2050. So how do you see that? What is the way forward? How can we make cities livable for urban poor, especially for urban poor? Because housing is a big challenge, and then health hazard also, because if a disease breaks out, then it affects the poor most, especially in slum areas. So what is your viewpoint? How can we tackle that?
Well, there is certainly no easy answer for such a very, very massive issue. But as I tried to say in an address I did this morning to this Congress, we don't have a magic solution in Europe. But we've learned also the hard way, because now we have close to 80% of urban population in Europe. And so even though this urbanization was slower than in Asia, it also brought a lot of challenges. So in our way, the best way to address this is to have what we call integrated approach, tackling everything, not just transport or not just let's say waste or housing, but everything from education to health to housing, sanitation, etc. You have to address all aspects at the same time. And secondly, you have to do this in an inclusive way. As, by the way, the mayor of Jakarta said, you have really, for such issues, to try to get the support of the communities, because without the buy-in of the community, while the success is far less assured. And so these are the two ways, in our view, to best address these challenges.
How important will be the role of city leaders? Because when new urban agenda, even the SDGs were launched, then it was said that role of cities will be very important in achieving all the objectives. Because if you see, the cities have always been the hub of innovation, hub of creativity. Now, if we look forward to cities for the answers of the present day challenges, do you think the cities have the answers, and how city leaders can play a constructive role in this?
Well, I guess that to make the life better for everyone, and to address such a daunting challenge like climate change in particular, every public layer has to be mobilized, from, let's say, the world level in the United Nations to regional, state, etc. But certainly city leaders have a key role to play, because many of the tools, many of the decisions are made at city level. When you talk about public transportation, city planning, as you said, sanitation, etc., many of these decisions are made by local or city government. And that is why they have a huge responsibility, and that is why, again, we at the European Union, we strongly support the Global Covenant of Mayors. We strongly support local initiatives, and we believe that connecting and establishing a network between cities is key to share good practices.
Now we will come to the Paris Accord that happened, and after that Trump became the president of the United States of America. So what is the scenario now? How do you see that the efforts of climate change are going to get affected, because the USA is not going to, because it's quite some time. But local governments in USA, they are ready to support, they are ready to do their bit. So what is your point of view on this?
Well, I think that the leaders of the European Union had made their position very clear. They were strongly, as you know, the driving force behind the Paris Agreement. We deeply regretted the decision of the administration of the United States to pull out. But at the same time, as you just said, we are very, let's say, reassured to see that so many mayors or local bodies in the United States have proclaimed very loud and clear that they wanted to go ahead. And that's very positive, because the US is such a big emitter and contributor of greenhouse gas emission. And for the EU, we continue to be on track in our path to reduce greenhouse gas emission. Our objective is to be largely a carbon-free economy by 2050. And we want to encourage, indeed, everybody to join this path, because it's just in everybody's interest.
What is the status of transfer of technology? That was one of the major issues that was raised by India and other developing countries, the transfer of technology for achieving all this, the goal we have said that it should not go beyond 2 degrees Celsius. So what is the status now?
Well, I'm not now specific on India, because I'm not posted in India. I used to be in the past. Yes. But now, if I look at Indonesia, where I'm now posted, I see that there's a lot of interest by the government of Indonesia, by city government, etc., to update the infrastructure, to have access to better fuel efficiency infrastructure. There's a lot of willingness on the EU side from companies to share or sell indeed these know-how and expertise, but in a very fair way, which is of course economically viable, but also something where at the end the beneficiary will certainly have full access and full control over the infrastructure and the technology. So I really much believe that there's a level playing field here, and that it's in, again, everybody's interest to see the level of sustainable infrastructure being reinforced worldwide.
What are the major programs of European Union in Indonesia right now, and what are your targets and objectives?
Well, in Indonesia, we used to have a very, very significant project on primary education, but I leave this aside. That's not the focus of today. But we also have a significant program on climate change mitigation, land planning, and the support of forestry. And this is ongoing in the province of Sumatra in particular, with the support of the central government. Mm-hmm. And we also have more specific projects to support civil society organization, local actors, plus in addition this partnership between cities. And so we are, let's say, with full steam behind the Indonesian government on this.
What are your future plans? I will come to the last question. I will finish. And what are your future plans and the objectives for Indonesia in terms of, I will ask this question differently. I will ask, what are the requirements of Indonesia at present, and what are your plans?
Well, I would say that Indonesia had maybe a very similar standpoint like India. They have a lot of resources, a lot of coal in particular. Electricity is rather cheap and should remain cheap according to the government, remain affordable. At the same time, they see by themselves that they have to have more renewable energy, and they have indeed a huge potential in terms of geothermal, in terms of sun, wind, and so it's time for them to also raise their stakes here, and we're ready to engage with them.
Thank you, Mr. Vincent. Pleasure
to talk to you too. Thank you.